Final question?
The last question here, and then we have to try to answer this summary of questions.
I'm asking this question going up because someone was, a lot of my sisters in the back said that it would be nice to hear from a black woman for once. So it's someone alright? Because this is our space right now. Anyone who is in here right now, you're welcome. We're bringing you in, but this is a black space right now. And you're holding it. Alright? Now, on behalf of my sister Cindy right now, I'm asking this question. And it's the same question I would have had, so dope. Alright. When it comes to violence against racialized bodies, trans and non-gender conforming bodies, there's often movements, protests, and organizations advocating for the immediate arrest and imprisonment of perpetrators. So what do we, as abolitionists of the prison system, advocate for in terms of immediate action with a different understanding of justice?
Just that much?
Yes! Forget all the other people.
Well, I'm going to do the others in maybe one sentence. The first one about the advancement of struggles. I think, we've come a long way. And we have to acknowledge that we've come a long way. Because otherwise, if we didn't, what would we be saying? That struggles don't matter. And oftentimes, we don't actually accomplish, we don't win what we think we're fighting for. But what we do in the course of engaging in these struggles is we develop a broader understanding of what it is we need to do. And so it may have been the case in the 60s that many people thought that all black people needed was civil rights. And once we got civil rights, we would be free. But of course, we see that civil rights was not nearly enough. It was important, necessary, but not sufficient. And the struggle for freedom is far broader. And the struggle for freedom, in my opinion, is also a struggle to dismantle all of the structures of capitalism. Not only the economic institutions, but the ideological insinuation of capitalist ideas into our interior lives, into our dream lives, into our play worlds. The second question, yes, politicians should be held accountable, but don't assume that politicians are ever going to do what they say they're going to do. And this was the problem with Barack Obama. Yes. And it wasn't just what he said he was going to do; it was what everybody thought he should be doing as the first black president. That he should have revolutionized the entire planet. But obviously, he couldn't do that if he wanted to, whether he wanted to or not. But I think what's most important is the organizing that people do. And that, as a matter of fact, the last years of the Obama presidency might have been very different if people had not gone home after they went to the polls twice and then they went home. They have not been demonstrating against. There's a way in which you can demonstrate against what you consider to be progressive politicians. You can challenge them in order to force them to go further than they would go on their own. And so a lot of these responsibilities are our responsibilities. The question about uniting, yes, I think we should unite, but unity is a difficult thing, and especially unity that acknowledges differences. Oftentimes people say we want to unite, but what they're really saying is that I want you to support me. They're not talking about the importance of recognizing how essential it is to what Jackie Alexander talks about, learning other people's stories. So how do we embrace other histories as if they were our own? And this is, I think, what we should be doing right now, particularly with the question of Palestine and Palestinian sovereignty. Yeah, we should infiltrate offices, yeah. Because, another way of putting this is to say that there are arenas of struggle wherever you are. Many people assume that you can only do the work if you're in a particular place. And once you move into another arena, there's nothing to do. But wherever you are, whether you're in the corporate world, there's still work that you can do. There's still ways that you can resist. And so think about that, particularly those of you who are students who may assume that, okay, this is your period for activism, and afterwards when you graduate and you get jobs, you won't find the spaces for doing that work. You have to create the spaces. You have to do the work. And the question that the young man asked about whether, our moments when we felt that the whole world was against us. And I never felt the whole world was against us. And because I always knew that there were communities of struggle, there were communities of resistance. And I never imagined myself as being alone, never, not even when I was very much alone. But I imagined myself as a part of a community, and what was happening to me wasn't happening to me so much as an individual. I perhaps, was the obvious target, but the attack on me was an attack on black communities. It was an attack on people who were involved in radical struggles. It was an attack on black women. It was an attack on communists. So I always imagined myself as a part of those communities. And then finally the question about how to address campaigns that tend to call upon us to engage in the same game of criminalization. Okay, so I'll take the case of Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown. We can also look at cases that involve gender violence and violence against trans or gender non-conforming people.
She said us.
Almost instinctually, we say, prosecute the perpetrator. That is what we always demand. If someone is killed by the cops, what we want is for the cop who killed that person to be brought to justice, which usually means to be prosecuted and sent to prison. Now, if we do this, we are replicating the very impulse that is responsible for the original violence. So how do we imagine other modes of accountability and ways of addressing these violences without depending on punishment? We think punishment all the time, even in our personal relations. When someone does something bad to us, it doesn't even have to be terrible. But immediately we begin to think, oh, how can I get back? There's that retaliatory impulse, that effort to that revenge, and this is what the whole system of state punishment is based on. What we end up doing is we replicate the state. in our very emotional responses. So we end up doing the work of that state that we think we're challenging. So it's not an easy question. My response would be, in the very first place, we have to acknowledge what's going on. And we have to recognize that if we feel this satisfaction with the idea that the person who committed the act of harm is going to be subject to harm, him or herself, then we're not in any way removing ourselves, from this eternal cycle of violence. And at the same time, it's not going to solve the problem, because a cop kills a young person of color. If you want to put the cop in prisons, it rarely happens. But if you demand that the cop be brought to justice and be sentenced and so forth, this is one person. And we're talking about a phenomenon, racist violence, that is enormous and that has long histories. And simply prosecuting one person is not going to even begin to address the problem. But you see, what happens is that we feel satisfied if we do, we feel that we've won a victory. So let us think about other ways of holding individuals accountable and recognizing that it's not simply about individuals, it's about far more than individuals. In the case of Michael Brown, I would say the major demand has to be demilitarization of the police.